Tonight at 6, scathing report almost a year after a parole officer was killed on the job. Allegations that Maryland's public safety department is an unsafe workplace. The recommendations for change. Doge blocked Elon Musk's team accessing sensitive taxpayer information, ordered to stop and destroy data they've collected. Another judicial pause over sweeping changes from the White House.
And some freezing rain out there at the moment, but that freezing rain was moving out, and what's going to move in for your Sunday? We'll talk about that coming up.
Salvage continues. The plane and helicopter now both largely out of the Potomac. This all comes after last week's tragedy in the skies. The helicopter's location transmission system reportedly turned off before the crash. We'll explain. Finding savings, inflation woes continue after a promise from the White House to crack down on prices. We're stretching your dollar with a grocery price check.
You're watching the station covering all of the DMV. This is DC News Now.
Good Saturday evening. Thank you for joining us for DC News Now at 6 o'clock. I'm Ben Dennis. Top of the hour, got to get over to meteorologist Scott Sumner on the DMV first warn day. Scott, I know we had been forecasting some sleet, some wintry mix today. How's it all playing out right now?
Yeah, it's playing out, but it's really not a very impressive, I got to tell you right now. I mean, we're seeing the last gasp of some freezing rain here in the district. As you'll note, the plain rain is the green shade of color, and that pink shade of color is the freezing rain. This is the metro vicinity. You can see some of that moving on through here. Over the last couple of hours, we moved down towards, say, out towards southern Maryland area. And even there, we're starting to see this moisture slide out of the region. So let's take a wide view and see what we have all in all. And again, not very impressive. There is still some freezing rain along the I-270 corridor up towards the Hagerstown area, east of Hagerstown. Portions of northern Carroll and northern Frederick counties, but that again is moving out, as you'll see with a future radar over the next couple of hours or so, moving in towards Pennsylvania. And we will start to see some moisture moving in towards Garrett County, where there is actually in this general area a ice storm warning, but that's the exception rather than the rule. That's where you'll see at least probably a quarter of an inch of ice on some of the buildup of the roads, etc. Also some of the power lines. But I'm assuming that this freezing rain and this winter weather advisory that's in purple will get dropped by 7 o'clock this evening. So that's some good news there. As you see, road conditions, they are wet just about everywhere you look, and where you notice the pink and the red, that's more of the icy shade of color, or certainly icy shade of color there, with some icy roads out towards, like I said, northern end of Montgomery County in towards Frederick County. We'll talk more about what to expect for the rest of the tonight hours and going into your Sunday coming up. All
right, Scott, we'll see you in just a bit. A scathing new report describes Maryland's public safety department as an unsafe workplace. A citation from the state's labor department claims that conditions led to last year's murder of a parole agent. Davis Martinez died last May while performing a wellness check on Emmanuel Sewell. At the time, Sewell had been recently released from prison after serving 21 years of a 40-year sentence for sexual assaults and burglary. Authorities arrested Sewell in West Virginia a day after Martinez died. While the citation does not mention Martinez by name, it does list the same date he died and reference the parole and probation agent had been beaten and stabbed to death while performing a home visit. Well, officials now recommending several improvements to the agency, including two-way radios and fitted bullet and stab-proof vests. The union head representing the officers calls this a good first step.
We've been crying for a very long time, letting our administration know, from all the way from our secretary down to our directors, the dangers that we face, and trying to get measures in place to keep us safe.
Citation says the department has until March 3rd to improve working conditions. It does not say what will happen if the deadline is not met. Our Dave Laval will have more on that report coming up at 10 o'clock on the CW. All right, in the district, new tonight, police say a 17-year-old boy was shot in Southeast this afternoon. Officials say it happened on Stanton Road near Suitland Parkway around 2:20. The boy was reportedly conscious and breathing. No word on his condition at this hour. Police say they're looking for a suspect around 5'3", wearing a blue Canada Goose jacket and blue jeans. Meantime, D.C. fire officials say that 2 people were hurt after an apartment fire in Northeast this afternoon. Fire reportedly broke out in the basement of a 2-story apartment building along Kendall Street near Capitol Avenue just after 2 o'clock. About 60 firefighters responded there. 3 people were evaluated, 2 sent to the hospital with minor injuries. Well, in Virginia, a fight over the state budget. Both the House of Delegates and State Senate have released their proposed amendments to the budget, and they're in stark contrast from amendments proposed by Governor Glenn Youngkin in December. The legislature's amendments include tax rebates of $200 for individual tax filers and $400 for joint filers to be sent to Virginians later this year. But both versions do not include Governor Youngkin's proposed car tax relief proposal or his plan to end taxes on tips for hospitality workers.
Expect rebate checks to go out by October 15, 2025. If we had gone with the recommendation of the governor on car tax relief, that would have taken much longer.
We'd still like to see something done on the car tax, and we would like to see something done on tips. But the focus is to make sure money gets back to Virginians, and this budget does that.
The budget process is far from over. The House and Senate will have to come up with a compromise version to send to the governor for him to consider before the General Assembly session ends later this month. Time's a ticking. Well, we're taking a live look at the Kennedy Center tonight after possible changes to its leadership. President Trump announcing in an unprecedented move, he's firing multiple board members and making himself the chairman. Trump says he'll be giving direction on programming, specifically saying he will end any drag performances. The Kennedy Center responding to the president's declaration saying, quote, "We have received no official communication from the White House regarding changes to our board of trustees," adding, "There is nothing in the center's statute that would prevent a new administration from replacing board members. However, this move would be the first time such action has been taken." Well, after the White House announced the gutting of humanitarian agency USAID, a federal judge is blocking the Trump administration from placing thousands of those workers with USAID on leave. The judge also ordered staffers to be reinstated who were placed on leave. But the funding freeze on the agency will stay. This judge, who was appointed by Trump, cited the well-being of the workers in that ruling. Earlier this week, USAID's name was scrubbed off of their headquarters downtown and its flag was taken down. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the shakeup inside the agency is to ensure American money goes toward American interests. Another federal judge has blocked Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, from accessing sensitive documents inside the U.S. Treasury. This happened overnight. These documents contain personal data of millions of Americans, including Social Security numbers and bank information. The judge also ordered all data downloaded to be destroyed. The judge's decision follows 19 Democratic states, including Maryland, that filed a lawsuit saying DOGE's access to these documents violated federal law. The judge set a hearing on this case for next Friday. Turning now to the mid-air collision. New video tonight of the ongoing recovery in the Potomac River. This new video is from the NTSB showing them removing the major parts of the Black Hawk helicopter involved in that crash. The wreckage has been shipped to a site to continue investigating. And with all major pieces recovered, crews are working to remove smaller debris from the river. 67 people died in this crash, and investigators from the NTSB are still working to learn what brought those 2 aircraft so close to one another. One helicopter and retired airline captain tells us he expects investigators to uncover more about what was going on in the air traffic control tower at the time of the collision.
Airplanes and the helicopter can both hear the controller, but they can't hear each other. That's a bit of a confusion there. There are supposed to be 2 controllers, one for the helicopter and one for the airplane, so that remains to be seen. That's another point that will be subject to the investigation.
Also new, Texas U.S. Senator Ted Cruz says his colleagues in the Senate were told the Army Black Hawk helicopter's location transmission system was turned off, which military aircraft are reportedly allowed to fly with that system off. For more of our full coverage of the mid-air collision over the Potomac, head to our website, dcnewsnow.com. You'll find more about the victims and the latest on the investigation when we're not on the air. All right, in D.C., a renewed attempt to repeal the city's home rule to Republican congressmen reintroducing what's called the Bowser Act. The bill would revoke the district's ability to govern itself. DC News Now's Marielle Carbone reports from Capitol Hill with the details.
This is not the first time we've seen a threat on D.C. home rule, but one elected official tells me it feels more serious given that the White House, Congress, and the Supreme Court are all ruled by Republicans. He and others are vowing to ensure D.C. continues to keep its autonomy.
Two P words, performative and punitive.
For lifelong Washingtonian and ANC Commissioner Tiffany Nicole Johnson, the latest attempt to revoke D.C. home rule is frustrating.
They get us all in an uproar, all in a tizzy. We start focusing on this, taking away from what really matters to D.C. residents such as myself.
And Johnson says home rule is paramount for D.C. residents.
People forget D.C. has like 700,000 actual residents born and raised who live here.
And without it, critical D.C. programs are in jeopardy.
The summer youth employment program that Mayor Barry started, of which I'm a graduate of.
This week, Utah Senator Mike Lee and Tennessee Representative Andy Ogles reintroduced the Bowser Act, or the Bringing Oversight to Washington and Safety to Every Resident Act, which would repeal home rule and give Congress control of the city. Ogles writing in a statement, Bowser and a corrupt Washington City Council are incapable of managing the city. He and Lee pointing specifically to the indictment of Trayon White and, quote, repeated armed carjackings. Earlier this week, D.C. Council ousted White through its city code, and violent crime is down 27% year to date.
It's not time to hide or hope that Trump doesn't do the wrong thing.
D.C. Shadow Representative Oye Awalewa says he and other elected officials will continue to fight for D.C. statehood.
D.C. residents want to be treated like anybody else. We don't want special powers. We don't want to have anything more than our friends in Maryland, Virginia.
And this act named after Mayor Muriel Bowser. I did reach out to her office about this, but they declined to provide comment for this story. Reporting from Capitol Hill, I'm Marielle Carbone, DC News Now.
All right, thanks to Marielle for staying on top of that. All right, Metro is hosting their 7th annual Fill a Bus campaign across the DMV this week. Volunteers filled the bus with donations at the Giant Food grocery store along Wisconsin Avenue earlier this afternoon. This is one of the many events benefiting those in need in the DC region. If you're not able to make it, you can make donations online to the Capital Area Food Bank on their website until next Friday. Metro says their goal is to raise $18,000 and collect 41,000 meals this year.